Welcome to a new series of Church School videos for Grace United Methodist Church in Winfield, Kansas. The theme of every series that I've authored in the past 3 years is digging deeper. This series is no exception to this theme. For the next several weeks, the subject is prayer. Together, we're going to dig deeper into the varied and often confusing and controversial experiences of prayer. Let me say that again. Together, we're going to dig deeper into the varied, often confusing, often controversial experiences of prayer. First, there are many varieties in the experiences of prayer. Some varieties are spoken, others are nonverbal, some alone, others in community, some sacred, others secular. There seems to be as many varieties of prayer as Heinz 57 varieties of spices in foods. Yes, there are confusing experiences of prayer. Athletes pointing to the sky after they score the winning point, and the loser believing that God let them down to the extent that they must pray harder or in a different way next time. For the purpose of prayer was to have God on their side. That's pretty confusing, isn't it? And then there are controversial experiences of prayer. I was invited to open the county fair in the county where I lived. And on Sunday morning, when the rodeo began, and the inviter said, because I would reach more people than if I led my own congregation in worship at exactly the same time, 10:30 in the morning. For the purpose of the invitation was to see if I would say yes to the opportunity to reach out and convert with prayer at the rodeo at the county fair. That's pretty controversial, isn't it? Now, with the variety, the confusion, and the controversy, it became obvious to me that we've got to sort of provide a framework for our journey of digging deeper into this experience of prayer. And this week, we're going to try to get that definition nailed down. Now, as we begin, I've also got to state a disclaimer. One of my temptations in preparation for this series was to read, scan, and review the many books and articles I have at my disposal, and anyone has at their disposal if they've got a library accessible to them. Thousands of books, thousands of articles on the subject of prayer. I've decided not to prepare in this way. Rather, I'm starting with the many references and questions about prayer that have arisen in conversations that we've had together in these church school videos, none of which have been on the subject of prayer, but so many of which have included conversation and thoughts about prayer. And so I invite you to not begin with the thoughts of others. Let us begin with our own experiences as we dig deeper into the subject of prayer. So let's try a working definition of the universal experience of prayer. I guess the first step is to recognize what I just said needs to be clear. and that is the practice of prayer is not possessed by one or two religions in the world. Prayer is a universal experience. Prayer is an experience in many forms in every faith movement practiced throughout the world. I personally realized this in the experience of a family from Vietnam, that a congregation in which I served adopted this family. This family was not Christian. They affirmed the religious practices of Buddhism. However, this family attended Christian worship every Sunday. I made an incorrect assumption that they attended Christian worship out of an experience of thanksgiving for their sponsors, a Christian congregation. But I watched and I realized there was something deeper than appreciation for sponsorship. The deeper reason was that this practice of prayer within worship, Mr. Q particularly found a spiritual connection with United Methodist in the prayer time of worship. I discovered this after one Sunday when we had a worship experience that included many spatial components, and we didn't have any time or room for the customary experience of prayer. We just deleted that from the plan and order of worship. But I could tell after worship where Mr. Q always just had a big grin on his face, and when he left the experience of worship, but this time he had no grin, and he was disappointed. And his son was with him. Mr. Q hadn't learned any English at that time, and so the son translated for me Mr. Q's disappointment. And the son's translation was, "This morning we did not touch God. We sang, we preached, we had spatial music, we had the children's choir, we had a spatial announcement that moved prayer out of the service." And a faithful adherent to Buddhism attended Christian worship, not because he understood the sermon, not because of the sponsorship of the congregation, but rather because of the universal experience of prayer in which he felt he touched the divine. What then is this universal experience? In the words of a Buddhist, touching the divine. I simply offer to you that prayer is the universal quest of humans who believe that there's a spiritual dimension of human existence to align themselves with the divine. Let me repeat. I offer to you that prayer is the universal quest of humans who believe that there's a spiritual dimension of human existence to align with the divine. In all of the varieties of prayer, alignment with the divine is the agenda. In all of the confusing experience of prayer, alignment with the divine is the agenda. In all of the controversial experiences of prayer, alignment with the divine is the agenda. You see, prayer is a common ingredient practiced in every faith movement, and from the prayer's perspective, it is to align with the divine. Now, as we dig deeper into the experience of prayer, we take this journey as followers of Jesus. Followers of Jesus who affirmed praying to his God. And we have an understanding in the Christian faith movement that God is the author of agape love and revealed that in Jesus. So of all the universal experiences of prayer, Christian prayer is the practice of aligning with the divine. That's how we will move forward. And we welcome you to this journey of how you and me and others align with the divine. And for your thought and conversation, I've got some questions. First of all, does the understanding that prayer is a common experience of every faith movement disturb or strengthen your personal practice of prayer? Secondly, what are your personal experiences of meaningful practices of prayer? And finally, what are your personal experiences of offensive practices of prayer? Let's enjoy the journey together. Thank you for being on the journey with us.